Okay, let's do number 3. Absolute value of 2x minus 3 equals -1. Now, in order to split this, it needs to be isolated, which it is. So we have 2x minus 3 equals -1, or 2x minus 3 equals 1. So when we solve, add the 3, divide, and we get 1. Add the 3, divide, and we get 2. Now when we check with 1, 2 times 1, 2. 2 minus 3 is -1. The absolute value of -1 is 1. That didn't work. X equals 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is 1. Okay, well, neither one worked. Now, why would that be? Well, the reason is right here. Okay, can an absolute value ever equal a negative number to begin with? Will anything ever come out of an absolute value and equal a negative number? No. So we could have known from the beginning that this was a no solution. Okay, let's go to number 4. Absolute value of x minus 1 equals 5x plus 10. Now, this is the first example where you have more than one term on the second side. What does that mean for when we're splitting? We have x minus 1 equals 5x plus 10, or we have x minus 1 equals, now on each of these, we just turn the number negative. But in this scenario, we have more than one term. So we have to consider that we are going to be applying a negative to the whole expression, which means by default, we're going to be distributing the negative to each term. So over here, let's go back to this one. If I combine like terms, I'm going to subtract my x over, I get 4x. Subtract my 10 over, I get -11. So therefore, x equals -11/4. Over here, when I distribute, I get x minus 1 equals -5x minus 10. Add my 5x, I get 6x. Add my 1, I get -9. So therefore, x equals, simplified, -3/2. Okay, now the question is, what works? Okay, now at this point, you can get out a calculator and use to see if it does work or doesn't work. Okay, so let's see how that works in your new fancy calculators. Okay, so absolute value, you're going to go to math, arrow over, and you have ABS, which stands for absolute value. And it'll look similar to this, or it'll actually say ABS. Mine's a little bit more updated than the school ones. So then I'm going to type in -11/4 minus 1. Now, because I have a fraction, I'm going to use parentheses. So parentheses, -11/4 minus 1. Arrow over, get an answer of 3.75. Okay. Now, typically we don't like decimals, but that's okay in this scenario. All I'm checking is, does it equal or not? Now I gotta check the other side. 5x plus 10. 5 times -11/4 plus 10. Oh, doesn't look like it works because the absolute value actually made that one positive and this one's negative. So this one doesn't work. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing with -3/2. Okay, so again, math, number, and we have -3/2 minus 1, 2.5, 5 times -3/2 plus 10, 2.5. So this one works. So in this scenario, we only get one answer. Okay, and let's try number 5. 3 times the absolute value of 4w minus 1, absolute value, minus 5 equals 10. Now, just like I said before, you can't separate this to two problems until it's isolated. So the first thing we gotta do is just like as if this was just a variable itself, like it said 3x minus 5 equals 10. We wanna isolate the absolute value. So I'm gonna add the 5. And divide by 3. So I get the absolute value of 4w minus 1 equals 5. Now I can separate and split it. So we have 4w minus 1 equals 5, or 4w minus 1 equals negative 5. Then we solve. Add the 1, divide and simplify to get 3 halves. Add the 1, divide, simplify to negative 1. Now we check, okay? And again, you can use your calculator to see which one works. I'll give you a second to try and check that on your own.